Good morning and welcome back, everyone, to the Explicit Measures podcast. We're glad you're all here. And hello. So a quick note here real quick. So we were starting a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties getting started right at 7:30 this morning. So just FYI, sorry about being a little bit late. We were having some technical challenges on our side. Computers don't always like you all the time, apparently. So that's a
Not
thing.
always.
Not always. All right, today our main topic will be talking about real-time intelligence. So that'll be our main topic for today. Going deeper as what does this mean? How do we unpack this? I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding of what this potentially could mean and how it could be useful in your business. So we'll unpack that here in a little bit. But before we get there, Tommy, you have some news for us. And I believe Tommy has lost a bet. This is good. I think this is good.
Well,
we'll see.
There's a lot of things that happened. So last week when we were on vacation doing some recordings, there's a nice little blog article on the Power BI update. Sounds great. And it starts with deprecation. No worries. Usually any feature or blog that starts with deprecation usually means the feature is going to go away in about 6 to 8 months. That's fine and gives us enough time. Well, lo and behold, my eyes widened as it was deprecation of metric sets, which have been around for a year, never got out of GA.
Yep.
And I mean, this is insane. Not only that, Mike, I've never seen any announcement or deprecation sets or deprecation notice with this timeline.
Yeah.
What's changing? This is October 6th this month.
Yep.
October 25th, you can't create metric sets. November 15th, they're going to be gone from the
full retirement. Gone.
Full retirement. And Mike, to put the layers on October 20th this month, I was giving a session at Community 7 Orlando that's now updated on metric sets with a full demo.
Clearly, they don't know what kind of sessions they're picking. I mean, they obviously aren't into the...
I was the one who suggested
it. So this two things come to mind when I see something like this happening. The first thing that comes to mind is I realize that Microsoft can't support every single feature, and the speed in which things are being deprecated here is probably indicative of how many people are actually using the feature, right? So if there's not a lot of people using the feature, it probably means you're going to be able to deprecate it very quickly with minimal impact to the rest of the organization or how people are using that. One thing I will just note here, I'm kind of saddened by this a little bit. I liked the idea of metric sets. It was focusing more on the measure and then all the dimensions that apply to said measure. I think potentially the rollout of this metric set thing wasn't very ideal. Maybe getting how do you go from a metric set to like building multiple visuals? How do you go from a metric set to getting it into a report? Or how do we build from this a little bit easier? So I think the idea or the concept was nice. It's just kind of disappointing to see it deprecated so quickly without any additional feature pieces on top of it. So I don't really know why it didn't get the usage or the love that it needed. I didn't really hear, no one was talking about it. It was kind of exciting when it came out. It seems to fit. I like the idea of it. Here's the KPI, here's the measure, and here's the different dimensions that should be used or applied to that measure. That made sense to me. I think you could reuse that across your organization. The story was nice. I liked it.
This is crazy, Mike. And not just because I had a session that I was preparing for on this. It's surprising to me, especially because of the timeline, the quick turnaround that they're going to deprecate it. That I've never seen before. And they've done that with a bunch of features. But this is surprising because I did make a bet with, I believe, Carly at the Microsoft product manager team. And I made a bet that before it went GA, 2 years after metric sets went GA, it would take over more views than reports. So, well, technically, did I lose? Because it never went GA.
But in my opinion, you super lost because not only did the feature not even make it past preview, it never made it to GA. It was so bad it wouldn't even get to GA.
I never said it was going to get to GA. That's like me putting a bet on the Packers-Bears game and lightning hits and there's no game.
Who knows? So anyways, On one hand, so on one side, this is sad that the feature is getting deprecated. I think the speed of which it is deprecating is purely because there's not a lot of people using it. Okay, fine, move on. On the flip side of this, though, this does for me give me some hope, because if you were going to maintain this feature or maintain this item, this just means resources can be reallocated to other things inside the Power BI platform, which I hope they're putting more people on the visualization side of things, which needs a lot more love and needs a lot of improvements and other features as well there additionally. Anyways, so really cool. That's another news item. I want to throw out another one here that I'm kind of excited about here. Now, this is not a deprecation of something. This is actually an enhancement on OneLake.
Okay.
OneLake, I like this whole concept and the data that's coming out of the OneLake experience. I'm also building a lot of products around data lake external sharing. So getting from one Fabric environment to another Fabric. Stay tuned. You're going to hear about a new product that we're coming out with called Data Marketplace in the near couple months here. We're going to start doing some announcements and some YouTube videos around what a data marketplace is and how can you go get it as a workload. So if you want more information, stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. There will be more information coming on that shortly. The OneLake API is now starting to communicate at the Fabric conference in Vienna.
Okay.
Huge announcement around Snowflake and Power BI Fabric OneLake integrations are now becoming more seamless, much easier to work with. So it says here, starting with the Apache Iceberg REST catalog, you can now use the OneLake APIs for Iceberg tables. So Iceberg is another format of columnar storage tables. It's designed slightly different than a Delta table. I think you have kind of basically three kind of Delta storage tables. You have Delta tables, you have Apache Iceberg or Iceberg tables, and then you have, I think it was like Booty. Huli? Remember, there's another version that's not quite as popular, but the two main ones are Iceberg and Delta. Databricks kind of adopted the Delta format, and then Snowflake kind of adopted the Iceberg open format. They both had their advantages. They're both super fast, and now you can start using Iceberg inside of OneLake, which I'm excited about. And I'm looking to build around that. So if you use that, if you're interested in something like that, or you want to start sharing data using Iceberg tables or a product that uses Iceberg sharing, let me know. Reach out.
So I am, and dude, anytime give me more APIs. That's all I know. I love me some APIs anywhere they are. So, and especially with workloads, they're kind of essential, right?
It opens up a lot more doors for you when you're building workloads. I've been building workloads since they came out. We've got one out now. We have another one in private preview called Data Marketplace. We have two more planned on the roadmap that we're going to be building more workloads for Fabric. I think it's a great opportunity for companies to really leverage their technology and do a good job there. Anyways, enough said there around the two news items. Any other news items, Tommy, you want to discuss?
I think that's everything, man. Is that all the news?
There's more stuff on the blog, but I think we're just going to hang on these two items only. All right. With that being said, let's jump into our main topic today. So today, I'd like to introduce a PM from the Microsoft product team, Christopher. Welcome to the podcast. We appreciate you joining us today. So today's topic is going to be all about real-time intelligence. What is it? How do we hear this word? There's an icon in the portal. You know, if you're a traditional BI developer on Fabric or traditional BI developer in Power BI, you may not be very familiar with real-time intelligence. So, Christopher, welcome to the podcast. We're happy to have you unpack this idea or this concept of what is real-time intelligence. What part of the product team do you work on?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Hi, Tommy. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation today. So, my name is Christopher Schmidt. I'm a principal program manager on the Microsoft Fabric Real-Time Intelligence Customer Advisory Team, which I've checked is not the longest team name inside of Microsoft. I have looked. There are longer. I keep looking for more words to add to our team name because we're going for the title.
Can you please add the word agentic or AI, like AI or something that Copilot's version of real-time intelligence,
including agentic applications. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Amazing. Awesome. So you're PM on the team. So I think there's a little bit of not a misnomer, but I think when people initially think of, or when I talk to clients around real-time intelligence, I think there's this initial thought or feeling that I have to have IoT devices and I have to be sending real-time analytics from like a website. It has to be always this high volume of information landing somewhere into the real-time intelligence platform. While this is part of that story, right? You totally can hook up and wire those things up. But I think there's also another portion of this story. And again, I love your input on this one too as well, Christopher. There's another story here where it's more like event-driven things. So, and I'm using event-driven because a lot of times I'm working with like a back-end system that's completing a process, and I need to have something load immediately when it's done, like a real-time load of when the data processing is complete. Is that kind of what's in scope for you, or are you focusing only on like high-volume, all real-time intelligence data?
You totally stole my thunder, Mike.
Oh, no.
Everything I was going to say. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is good.
So it's like, when we think of real-time intelligence, we commonly think of, streaming data and high velocity streams and what it is that I'm coming from. And while, like you said, that's important, and that's a huge part of some of the challenges that we deal with, it's not the whole story, right? I always joke that there's a reason I'm not in marketing, but if I was in marketing, I would call it the Fabric event-driven platform, not Fabric real-time intelligence. And everyone always tells me, like, Chris, that's a terrible name. Like, no marketing person's ever going to call it that. But
well, you know what? I will say marketing has done some pretty interesting things, naming some stuff. Like, I mean, translytical task flows, I'm not a fan of that name either. So
no.
I mean, let's just be clear. Microsoft's marketing team isn't like hitting, bombers every single time they're making a name up for something. There are a couple swings and misses.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, it really starts to tell the story of what real-time intelligence really is at its core.
Awesome.
And if you remember when real-time intelligence first came out, it was really called real-time analytics, right? So like the very first iteration was real-time analytics. And we changed that name and we moved away from that because it doesn't really represent everything that the product can go do, right? Real-time intelligence is like, when you really get down to it and you really understand the underlying reason why it's called that, it really starts to make a lot more sense. But it's this idea that no matter how quickly I'm getting my data in, and whether I'm getting that data in at a second level, because I'm pulling data from a bunch of sensors and machines, and I want to be pulling all that data in real time and ingesting it, or whether I'm only updating that data maybe once an hour or once every 15 minutes, or I only get that operational process or that thing every so often, I still want to act on those things as quickly as I can. I want to move to the ability to be able to take proactive actions inside of my environment beyond just the traditional kind of reporting style, right? So
I like that.
When we think of kind of what we've seen from analytics over the last 15, 20 years, really, as long as I've been in the business, which it feels like a long time. But the primary mode of delivery has always been a report, right? It's like, I'm going to give you a report, and then you're going to look at it, and you're going to analyze it, and then you're going to go make some decision on what it is that you want to go do. Real-time intelligence is about this idea of, I don't necessarily need a report. I can have a report if I choose to, but really I want to unlock any of a variety of different action systems that I can use to go consume and act on that data. So it may be a report, it may be a real-time dashboard, it may be something like an activator alert where I want to go trigger something like an if this then that rule, right? It may be agentic AI application, or maybe a conversational AI application. It could be all these different things that I'm pulling, then I want to go see in real time, and I want to go take some action, right? I was listening to your episode last week around the email subscription, right? And I think I was telling you in the pre-show a little bit around, like, I listen to you guys really regularly. I've listened to you for a really long time. So like, when we talk about getting an email subscription, right, or we talk about getting a report, an email subscription to me is a symptom, right? If I'm emailing something, someone needs to go do something with that, right? And you could really say the same thing about any report. If I build a report, I'm doing it because somebody's supposed to go do something, right? Real-time intelligence is the ability to say, well, what's the thing that you're supposed to go do? And is there a way that we can integrate it into our system and just say systemically, go do X, right? So I don't have to go through all the middle process of say, let's create a report and then let's make it available to you. And then you have to disrupt your flow and kind of leave whatever it is that you're working on and go to www.powerbi.com, look at your report and make a conclusion and a decision. It's the ability to just say, I know what those rules are. I know what needs to happen in my business from a business process perspective, and I want that to then just go automatically happen.
I like the point you made up here. Like you hit a couple items that I want to kind of unpack here. You said the real-time intelligence or real-time information is locking a variety of action systems. I like that term. So Tommy and I've kind of aligned on this idea of like the semantic model kind of core and key to a lot of things. Real-time intelligence doesn't necessarily always have to run through the semantic model to get out to the other side. Tommy, I think you're nodding your head there. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is we've always been stuck in this kind of assumption that real time is for hyper situations or niche industries, right? And I think that's a lot what Mike and I have been really finding out, especially with the Event Hub. We're coming from the Azure, Internet of Things and real event stream, where it's like, okay, unless you're, secure internet, cybersecurity, supply chain, like real time retail and inventory, then if real time doesn't make a lot of sense from a cost point of view. So a lot of people want real time, but there was always that, okay, is it worth the cost? But I think what we're finding with Fabric, and tell me, I think if this has been also your team's push as well, is, okay, we're going to do a lot more than just real time, so to speak, in all of the outside or external data sources. What I'm noticing a lot with the event stream is really that ability for things within Fabric to see what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of use cases that are applicable to things like observability, like absolutely, right? Because it really comes from to really understand RTI. If you go back, you can look at some of the existing tools that we used to leverage in Azure, right? Azure Event Hubs, Stream Analytics, a tool called Azure Data Explorer we used to use, right? And so with real-time intelligence, we brought a lot of those tools together, and we've really tried to simplify that journey to make it a no-code, low-code experience. When you look at what it would take to implement a streaming platform, even as recently as about 3 years ago, it was a really expensive project to go do. It wasn't something easy, right? And Tommy, to your comment you just made a minute ago, right? Back when I was a consultant, it hasn't really changed, I don't think, right? If someone would come to you in a business and say, hey, we could really use this data in real time, like almost the very first question out of every data team mouth is why, right? Like, why do you want that data in real time? What is it that you're going to go do? What are all those different things? And the reason why is because the reason why we asked that question is because we knew that that's a fundamentally different architecture that we needed to go down. We needed to go use a whole bunch of different tools. We needed to go leverage something that we didn't really have access to. We didn't have expertise. We had to go use something like Kafka, or we needed to go use something like, if we're using Confluent, or we were going to go create a roll your own kind of process. But it was a whole separate project that really happened outside of the traditional kind of data team process, right? It wasn't something that we typically managed. And so looking back on it now, retroactively, I think we can say it was really just us pushing back because we knew what it would take to go implement technically. But what real-time intelligence allows you to do is say, okay, we've simplified this, we've brought this into Fabric. Now, instead of needing to go through its whole separate project and this whole separate process where I need to go hire a consultant and wait 6 to 9 months, now I can spin this up in a no-code, low-code platform in really like a matter of days, right? Yeah. We have customers go from, I just heard about RTI to I'm in production 4 weeks later.
Wow.
And so the barrier to go from I didn't have the ability to get my data in real time to now I can really easily build a solution has really closed quite tremendously. And whenever we can get to a no-code, low-code type platform like that, it's also really easy to maintain, right? I know if I build something in an event stream and it's all no-code, or I'm using SQL to go do a transformation, and then I'm loading that data into an event house where then I want to go take these action systems on top of it, I can build it, but anybody can support it, right? It's not this niche thing that I need to go have a whole bunch of specially trained people to go do. I can just open that up and democratize it and say, hey, Tommy, I built this. Like, it's all yours now, right? Like, let's support it together as a team. And so that barrier that previously used to exist is really gone. Like, it doesn't really exist anymore. And so it makes it much easier to really kind of cross this gap.
A couple thoughts came up while you were talking there, Christopher. One was, I liked your question as a consultant, because I do the same thing as a consultant. I think, Tommy, you do the same thing as well. someone says, I need this in real time. And I want to ask another question. The follow-up question is, okay, from the moment you see the data till the moment you need to make a decision, what's the time? Like, what's the timing of that portion? And I've also used this kind of like, it's kind of like a gas pedal on a car, right? If you want to go faster, you're going to inherently use a bit more CUs. Now, I would argue the CU ramp up of cost before Fabric and now after Fabric, I think is different now. I think that the ramp up is still different. Yeah. But if I'm doing things where I'm like regularly trying to real time things, that's more expensive than if I'm just doing like this other side of the world, which is real time, which is still like event driven architectures. That also seems to be another really useful pattern, triggers that are running a pipeline of when a file appears or when something happens, I immediately do a loading procedure. So I look at this and I really want to unpack the customer's need and saying, what is the demand for real time? And if you're not making decisions within the first 5 minute, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, that's an argument to say that you don't need to overspend on the freshness of the data. You can slow down a little bit. And most companies are usually comfortable with this price balance mode of, I want things in like as of yesterday and older. Anything that happens today, we can kind of like have a separate reporting. So I also feel like there's a kind of a dichotomy here. And let me just pause right there. And I said some things there. Christopher, what's your reaction to that? Is that kind of your same sentiment there?
It's true. I think you touched on two things, right? You touched on the difference between real time and say near real time, right?
Yes, correct.
Like, do I really truly need this down to the second?
Yes.
And I think going back to your question and the question we were just talking about, like, unpack that, right? So I have a business user. They come to me and they say, I need my data in real time, right? My question is why? Like, to your follow-up question, what are you going to go do with that? Right?
Yes.
And when you can, when you add that question, you can really start to peel back the onion or the cake or whatever you want, like whatever whatever layered tool you want to leverage this, to use your analogy, right?
Yeah.
But when you start to peel that back, you say, well, what is it that you want to do? And I think that applies to every report, though, not just real-time reports, right? If I'm building a report for a user, why am I building that report for a user? What is it that they're supposed to go do with it, right? There's a difference between what is it that, like, I want to see what my sales were yesterday versus I want to go get this data in real time because I want to go make a decision, right? I want to go create something in my business that happens, right? If the answer to that question is, well, why do you need that in real time? What is it that you're going to go do? If it's, well, I need that information in real time because that supports X business process that does X, Y, Z, right?
Correct.
Or if I want to look at, if the number changes from, say, 7 to 9, right, then that means bad stuff's happening, right? And I need to go take some immediate action, right?
Correct.
When you look at the number of reports that are out there, that literally someone's job is to watch that report all day long and look for those exceptions and those anomalies, right? Those exceptions are all things that, why do we necessarily need a report for it when we can leverage AI or RTI or like our tool, right? And we frequently hear it called AI, right?
Yeah.
I get pulled into a lot of conversations that are, I want to do AI on my data, and then we start talking, and they're like, "Well, I really want to know if someone's been on shift for more than 8 hours, right?"
Yeah.
Knowing if someone's been on shift for more than 8 hours, that's not an AI use case. That's a event-driven use case. That is a
Okay.
I clocked in at a certain time. I know that I need to clock out by a certain time. And if I haven't done so, then I need to go trigger an alert, right? I need to go trigger something. It needs to become event driven for what it is. I don't need a report that I need to watch because it's not sustainable or realistic that I, as a user, I'm going to be taking every 5 minutes of my day going and switching back to a report. If you are, that's an incredibly inefficient use of your day, right?
Yeah.
So if I can just train the system, and Tommy, I'm going to stop in just a second because I can see you want to say something. If I can just train the system to say, hey, I just want to create a rule. And if I create that rule and I'm processing this data and I'm streaming this data in, and I know that Chris clocked in at 9 a.m. and it's coming off on 5 p.m. and he hasn't clocked out yet, that I just want to go trigger some alert and just say, hey, Chris, you need to go clock out, right? Those are, I think, we're really starting to see the gap between what real-time intelligence is truly capable of and what kind of where we move past just the streaming platform, right? Of just, hey, I've got a million sensors and I want to pull it all in.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah. So you made some interesting points there, and I just want to talk about the real time and that line that I see that exists. So completely see what you're saying, but there's a threshold for me in terms of real-time action and then real-time reporting, and especially for those who want to see their sales, right? So there's a few hurdles just to get that real time, even if it's on their existing dashboard, right? One of the first thing is dealing with the team skills. It's, even though you made it easier than I think it's ever been, there's still some upskilling in terms of this streaming architecture, some of that event driven design, and also being aware of the cost. So would you agree or disagree that everything could be or should be real time, or is maybe a better way of putting this as Fabric's real time analytics opens up the door for more possibilities?
I think I would say first, like when I look at what real-time intelligence is capable of, it's very useful for measuring events that are happening in your business, right? Doesn't mean that it replaces everything. It doesn't. Like if I want to go implement a master data, quality process, right? That's not really a real-time intelligence thing. That's not what we do, right? However, if I have a master data list, or if I've gone through a data quality effort and I know that, hey, this is the reference data, these are all the customers I have, or these are all the products that I'm selling, or these are whatever it is that I'm leveraging. All those, what in the warehousing space we used to call fact tables, right? All those fact tables that are measuring something that's measured in time granularity that says like, hey, as these things are happening, I'm loading them into my fact table. Like those are all things that I can leverage to say, should I make those event driven so I can act on those business rules as they're happening, right? Because one of the really key things of real-time intelligence is you don't just have reports or a trigger or whatever it is. I get a whole host of things that become available to me, right? I can go look for anomalies. I can go integrate this into AI applications. I can go leverage all the different pieces that I want, right? When we look at a lot of the different things that are emerging and evolving in the space, right? Being able to, I think, proactively prepare your data in a way that it can be consumed in all these different techniques becomes very powerful, right? Because then I'm not just constrained to say, oh, I can only make it available for a real-time reporter. I can only make it available for these things, right? But if I can process those events that are happening in my business, then I get a whole bunch of new opportunities that then become available to me.
This is interesting. There's a question that came up in the chat here that I just kind of want to unpack a little bit. I think it relates very well with what the 2 points you're talking about here are communicating, which is there's this misunderstanding, I think, Christopher, that you were saying, like, what is AI versus what is real time? But real time sometimes funnels into AI-based things, like, for example, anomaly detection, right? I'm just going to send in data in real time, have like a range of parameters or a range of acceptable values of data, and I'm looking for when does that data point expand outside of that normal range. And actually, I gave a link here to the real-time intelligence anomaly detection article. Just want to point that out in the chat window. That is currently in preview. So there is a preview for real-time intelligence with anomaly detection. Something's happening, data's moving along, and all of a sudden something occurs. It's out of spec or out of tolerance. So as one who has spent some time in manufacturing, and I'd like to talk a couple real world examples around where real-time intelligence makes, I think, a lot of sense. One of them was when I was working as a intern way back in the day as a mechanical engineer. We were doing a lot of tolerance specifications. And so what we were able to do is we were able to have digital calipers or digital instruments that were being applied to our workstations. So all of the users who were building parts, checking them, and as the machine would churn out these parts, at the time we were making medical implants at the time, and so you're always checking the tolerances on things. And so since we had digital calipers, digital micrometers, all that data could be sent to a central place. So we were centralizing the data, and managers could watch the different tools in the area and watch real-time analytics on what was happening on the tooling floor, which was amazing. because at some point the tooling wears out. The program of the computer is the same path every single time, but if the operator isn't paying attention, that tool will wear down just ever so slightly and start increasing the tolerances of different things, or making diameters bigger or something smaller. So in that situation, it was really important because the material we were working with was extremely hard, titanium. It's pretty expensive, so you don't want to be like wasting the material or throwing away a lot of these parts, because you're spending real time to produce the material. I mean, that's real dollars saved by being able to monitor that in real time. And so if something is going to have tolerance within a part or two, you want to be able to quickly identify problem on machine 3. Let's go talk to the operator. Let's make sure the machine's doing what it should be doing correctly. So that was one, I think, really good use case for like where we were using not real time in Fabric, but like a use case of why you'd want to leverage real time.
And you touched on a couple of different things, and I'll come back to the RTI and AI comment in a minute. But
Sure.
I think, RTI, one of the really powerful things that allows us to do is exactly what you're talking about, because we're able to act and react on things in real time.
Mm-hmm.
You can very easily associate dollar value to your solution.
Great
right?
point.
To say, like, hey, if this machine goes offline at 1 p.m. and I'm processing my data once a day, I might not know about that until tomorrow. That could be, depending on your organization, that could be $1,000, that could be $10,000, that could be $1 million in lost revenue.
Correct.
But when you're able to process that data in real time and say, hey, it's 1:15 and that machine just went offline, now I can go back and say, hey, we need to dispatch somebody out there to go fix it right now. Like, let's go fix it, because that is costing my organization money. And that
real dollars.
That really moves the data team from being a report generation tool where it's like, oh, if like I used to have a manager a really long time ago, and like he would always say, like, it's just a report. Like, it was very important to him. He's like, we're not getting up in the middle of the night to fix your reports. Like, sorry, like, it's just a report. Like, you'll be okay if we fix it at 9 a.m. when we come in, right? But like, which I love that attitude, because I think it really shows and reflects like really where reports fall, right? They're very reactive. Yes. They're very reactive mechanisms to go say. But when you can get to that proactive point, you can say, hey, this business process is fundamentally broken. It's not working, right? People can't do their job, or the machine isn't producing an output, or or whatever business process is happening. There's a tangible dollar amount to that it can actually be represented, not as funny money, but as real money that says, like, as an organization, this is costing you like $1 million a day. So being able to fix it in 10 minutes is much more impactful than being able to say, oh, we'll fix it tomorrow, whenever that's happening. And that's really, I think, where you start to see the data team elevate from the report writer who's just providing that to being like a partner within the business, right? To say, hey, we can leverage this data, go do all kind of these different things for you for what it is that you're looking for. So there's a lot of value, I think, to be said for being able to react. And we also know it's interesting because as we pull data in more real time, we find all the things that you don't necessarily see when you look at it in aggregate, right? When you look at when you look at, say, RPMs spinning on a machine, and we'll have to switch our analogy here in a minute, because we're going to get down the machine road. But like, when we look at, say, a machine and we say, okay, this machine typically operates at, say, like 3,000 RPM, or to your point about the titanium, right?
Sure.
Of, hey, I'm processing this. If I'm only processing that once a day and I'm averaging it or looking for it or something, there's a lot of nuances in the granularity of the data that you lose, right? If I have a spike and it spikes 5 times in an hour to 5,000 RPMs, then it comes back down to 3,000, then like, I won't see that if I only process it once a day. But if I'm able to process that in real time, I can see, oh, it's spiking at 5,000. Why is it consistently spiking? And then when you can leverage things like anomaly detector and some of these other action systems that we're building to make it really easy to go consume this data in real time, you can really quickly and easily see, oh, here's an anomaly for what it is that I'm seeing, right? Now I know that this machine is causing an issue, or when the RPM spike to 5,000 within, 5 times within an hour, typically machines fail, within 7 days after that. So going back to now I can generate real business value, the closer you can get to that predictive analytics line, you can go fix that machine before it even comes offline, right? And then not only are you not incurring the outage at all, but you're saving that money, that company money, right? Because they're able to continue their business processes uninterrupted.
So
okay,
ahead, Tommy. Yeah, Tommy, you go first, because I have two reactions I want to talk about. This is so good. You're making me smile so much.
I'm gonna slightly shift.
Tommy.
So, Mike, you go, because we're gonna.
Okay. I don't want to pivot off this point here, because we're talking about like RPMs and machines and manufacturing. I do want to. So I'm gonna bring back an analogy. Everyone on this call or everyone on the podcast will understand. Okay, and Tommy, you're gonna laugh at this one too. I'm smiling and smirking over here. I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. If only I could get real-time analytics on my CU consumption in my fabric capacity, because Tommy runs that report and it spikes my CU usage, and he's exporting all this data, and it's like it's killing my capacity, and I need to know, like, to me, like, yes, it's RPM on a machine, but like realistically, like going back to real dollars, going back to like real impact, like real data loss prevention type things, like those are scenarios that organizations should definitely be looking at around this space, which is, hey, look, this is where I like the analogy of the Ring doorbell, right? And again, it's Ring, whatever the Nest version is, their version, it doesn't matter. I want to be able to say, these are the activities that I really care about, especially in the monitoring space. Hey, look, I really care about people exporting to Excel, or when they're hitting analyze in Excel queries. What does that look like? Or queries that are taking longer than a minute and a half to run from the analysis services model. Those are like real-time events where people are trying to do things in a system and stuff is potentially immediately going down. And I want to start adjusting or working with that individual immediately to say, okay, the behavior is wrong. You shouldn't be building this massive pivot table. You should first apply some filters, or filter down the data before you use these things, because you're killing our capacity. So there's all these other experiences where I think that makes a lot of sense in the machining world, but everyone should be relating to this in a capacity consumption world as well. All of that can be very real-time decision making, and if you even really wanted to go all in on this, you could even say, well, when my capacity hits a certain level or a certain threshold, you can trigger an Azure automation, a run book that says scale up to the next CU. And then when you recognize there's no more consumption or the spike has gone away, you can then scale back down. So there's a whole bunch of like really good use case things to like auto scaling up and down your fabric SKUs to help you manage your capacity. So that way, when you have those high demand usage points, you have the capacity available. And when you don't need them, they can turn off. Like another example here is you can use a fabric workspace, turn it on, load the data engineering, hydrate your semantic model, and you can literally pause the fabric SKU, turn it off because you're no longer data engineering, and you can just let the semantic model hum and serve the data from a different workspace. There's all these really rich use cases of like really tuning and cost optimizing if you have real-time intelligence or event-driven architectures that solve these kinds of problems. All right, I'm going to pause.
Yeah, that's a great example, and it's a great use case for exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and you certainly can, right? Leveraging Activator in real time, like you can really start to get very sophisticated with some of these things that you want to go do.
Love it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. Tommy, I have one more example I'd love to throw down here for the airlines, but if you want to go, I don't want to take any more of your time.
Honestly, Mike, with our fabric consumptions and trying to do real time, there's a whole other can of worms. Why don't you do the airline one? Because that's a good example.
It's another good example. So, Christopher, you're just talking about like real time costs me real dollars, and I agree with you, right? It's the decision point of when something's happening. So I was working with an airline, and I learned a bunch of things I didn't know about airlines. What happens behind the scenes? How does maintenance occur? Right? There's a lot of preventive maintenance that happens inside the airline industry. And so the airplane is kicking out gigabytes of data every day. Like in a day, it's gigs of information that's getting pushed somewhere. Doors are open, sensors are on, all this kind of stuff. Well, I found out that any delay at the gate, like, so your plane's at the gate, and again, this is one that everyone can relate to. Every day that if that plane's at your gate and it's delayed a minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, it's something ridiculously like every minute you're sitting there at the gate is costing them like thousands of dollars a minute just to sit there. So for airlines to not have like real information as like, Has everyone checked in? Is everyone ready to go? Is everyone on board that we need to have on board? They want to close that gate on time every single time, because that's costing them real money for every minute, because that plane is a large investment for them to have it running. So we were building real-time reporting around maintenance, where these planes have to go. Can we know the location of where the plane will land and what parts need to be maintained, and how can we have them delivered to that location so the way the maintenance can occur at that site quickly and get that plane back into service. This is another one of these use cases where we were actually building, in this example, it wasn't Fabric only. We did a little bit of Fabric stuff. We were using Databricks and a combination of Fabric to really stitch the data together. But back to your point, Christopher, was it landed in a report that was updating every minute. And we had someone checking on individual planes and picking on individual flights. And that was the area that we were really focused on. And it really elevated the BI team to like really focus on, we're not just a cost center now. We're saving money to the company. We're adding real value back to the organization.
Yeah, you really get to a point where you like, not to beleaguer the point, but you really get to a point where you start to like really flip the script and say, we're so much more than just this reporting arm for what we're building, because you do integrate. And so I think using your airline example, airlines are a great example of, there's streams of data coming all over the place, right? Not just from the flight, but there's also baggage, and there's crew assignments, and there's passengers, and bookings, and all kinds of stuff that's constantly flowing, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at those and you look at how that typically operates within an organization today or within an airline, there's a whole bunch of different things that happen on the IT side, right? There's the reporting piece that happens from the data perspective, but when you have those types of scenarios like what you just described, and if you're not using a report for this, maybe they're using a real-time application for this, right? Maybe it's, I have an application, I'm pulling data, I'm trying to go organize this and kind of pull all this data from all these different places and see this in real time. Right? So even if you're not necessarily doing it as a data team, doesn't mean it's not happening within the organization. It might just be happening on another team, right?
Yes, or a different system. It's in whatever.
System,
it's happening somewhere. Correct.
Right, and so I've got it happening. It's happening somewhere. Like if I can pull that together and collate this together, so I can make this very easy, where I can start to build all these things, I can wind up with that single source of truth, right? I was talking with an airline recently, and they were telling me like, hey, if one of their challenges that they have today is, if we pull this report from this system and it says there's 78 people on the flight, and then I pull the report from another system and there's 79 people on the flight, that means the gate agent has to go down to the airplane and count the people and say how many people are on this plane.
Yes.
But
can't have that.
If you can get to that single source of truth, then you can start to say, how do I now I can build it, whether it's a real-time application or whether it's a report or whether it's an activator alert or whatever it is, I can build all these different things on top of it. And that becomes very freeing to an organization, because I can build a lot more than just a report that someone has to go check. I can go leverage all these applications that people are going and consuming. And so I'm able to not just prep my data, but also build my data in a way where it can easily be reused across a wide variety of use cases where I don't have to repull that data.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Tommy, you've got something to say.
So
Tommy, go ahead.
I think it's time to talk about the team and the organization here, because
I don't want to talk about that.
Oh,
they should just know how to do it. Nah, let's move on. Let's just talk about the tech, Tommy. I'm just teasing you.
Okay, all right.
I'm just teasing you.
That's fine.
We got to wait at least another 6 minutes so we can get right to the very end and be like, okay, and we're done. And I'm just teasing.
I think it's time to talk about, where does this actually fit in when we think about the adoption roadmap. And I want to talk about this in kind of a few areas. Obviously, not trying to boil the whole ocean here, but where do you see real-time analytics intelligence fitting in terms of Lakehouse, notebooks, direct lake, warehouse, etc. We have all these features, right? And you can only do so much at one time. Where would you say kind of real time? Obviously, there may be some bias here, but really, we're all starting from the ground up. Where's that from a priority level of getting to know it, understanding it, and making sure that it's cost effective? And then two, when it comes to actually dedicating team and resources around it, When does it kind of get integrated into your center of excellence from a self-service side of things?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Tommy. I think there's a couple of different things. The short answer is real-time intelligence can really be whatever you want real-time intelligence to be, right? You can leverage it as I'm going to go build it for this individual business use case, or you can leverage it as that central source of truth for however I want to pull it, right? A long time ago, before the age of data lakes, we had this concept called operational data stores. If you guys remember those, right? So
Yes.
the idea was before a data warehouse, right? I had my ODS. My ODS had a real-time view of everything that was happening in my environment. And when I had to build operational reports, I built them on top of my ODS because then I could empower the business. I could give the information that they needed without having to send them all the way back to the transactional system. And it was an easy way to alleviate the load, right?
Sure.
When we got to data lakes, like we don't really have kind of a similar concept. Now it seems like the name of the game is I'm going to process the data through my data lake as quickly as I possibly can, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you look at RTI and when you look at kind of where does it fit into that overall place, right? We have customers leverage RTI as an ODS and say, I'm just going to bring all my data here. My event house within real-time intelligence is going to become my central operational data store. And then I'm going to go send it downstream through OneLake to a lake house or to whatever external tool that I want to, right? So like you can become very freeing for how you leverage it or how you want to go implement it. You can also just implement the data into an event house and say, hey, you know what? Like I just want to use it as my light data warehouse for whatever it is that I need, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can really leverage it. I think where it's most impactful is really when you can get in front of the lake house or the warehouse or whatever it is. Like, so to your point about, hey, I'm looking at notebooks, I'm looking at lake house, I'm looking at all these different things, right? You still want to process that data. You still need to go through those steps. But if I can leverage RTI to unlock those operational capabilities beforehand, then it's really kind of the first, we see it as the first step in the process, right? And that's biased coming from me and my team inside of Microsoft. So in candidness, you might get a different answer if you go talk to somebody else, right? But like when you look at what RTI can leverage and really where it fits, putting it upstream of whatever downstream analytics process you want to do really starts to enable you to take advantage of all these systems while still building your lake house or your warehouse or whatever. And so there's a lot of opportunities where you can fit it into that operational construct. But when I think of RTI, in my head, because I'm an old school analytics guy, right? In my head, it equates very much in my head to what we used to call ODSs, right? I have an ODS. It's an ODS that's supercharged and AI ready and AI capable and all the other things that I want to go do. But there's a lot of other things that come with that as well. And I know those are some things that we'll talk about in a couple of weeks here, right? When we talk about things like data modeling, right? In an ODS, you didn't model any data, you just brought it in, right? And the
Correct.
way it came in is the way it came in, right? Like a lot of those same concepts apply, right? Of I just want to bring data into my ODS or my RTI capabilities, and then once I've got it available for all these action systems, I can go send it downstream for wherever I want. If you're under the newer context, we'd call it like under the Lambda architecture, right? We have like the hot path and the cold path, right?
Yep.
Of these kind of two different things.
I like this. I was just going to make a point about this. Like ideas, like
right.
reporting should kind of be boiled down to like, hey, here's all the things I care about in the context of today, the real-timey things, and here's the things that are like yesterday and older, where the data is not changing. It's just static. So you can spend a little bit more time processing to get it structured for optimized reporting, as opposed to today's data. You just need to see it right now. It's got to get to a dashboard ASAP.
Right, and so like we've seen Lambda architecture really evolve over the last several years to be like, I have my hot path and my cold path, but when you really look at it in real implementations at real organizations, it's normally Lambda cold path architecture, and it just kind of blows all the way through, right? And the hot path is kind of like, well, we'll try to do the processing of the data faster. Like that's going to be our hot path layer, right? That's not really Lambda hot path. Lambda hot path is much more about like that RTI ODS perspective of like, hey, I want to process it and then I'm going to go drop it to something and then I'm going to move it. I think Fabric is the first tool on the market that I've seen that really you can very clearly delineate and say, this is my hot path and this is my cold path. right? Now, does that mean I can only leverage RTI for Lambda type stuff? No, it doesn't, because I can leverage it for other things too, right? We have customers who use RTI as just the Kappa architecture, right? They're like, I don't need to mess with Lambda. I'm just going to do everything in Kappa. And so it really comes entirely up to you as an organization and as a data team. How do you want to leverage RTI, right? The name of the game is I want to act on things as they're occurring, and I want to go from becoming a cost center to a revenue generator, right? And I think that's really the mental switch to I think really master what real-time intelligence is really truly capable of. Because when you can really grasp that concept, then like all these other things become available to you.
I think we're gonna have to have another episode on like the user based piece. So again, Tommy, that's a big question I think you asked around like users and where this fits and who needs to know what. What I would argue right now is my experience has told me so far, people who are stepping into real time have either had some experience in other tools around real time, and they're now like happy that they come to Fabric and it's available to them, right? Hey, we know we can do real time. We kind of have some vague understanding of how it would work in our ODS or an existing system. I'm finding quick wins with those customers quickly moving into Fabric and just starting there. I think, Tommy, your question here though is really more around like, what about those other users that are like, potentially going to start experimenting for the first time, or starting to build their first architectures? Like, what's the learning path, or how do we get them up to speed? And I think it's possible, but I would definitely, I think, cater this real-time analytics into the more of the data engineering role. That is the persona I think that fits very well with RTI. And I think we'll get better. There'll be more RTI for Power BI, maybe data modelers and report builders as well. But I think for now, me personally, I would kind of put it in that data engineering space for now. And as things get better, it'll probably be more accessible to more individuals across the organization. Christopher, would you agree with that? Or is that kind of am I making a very weird, bold, out of the normal statement there?
I don't know that you have to necessarily fit into a data engineering construct in order to really make the key uses of RTI. Like you can, any analyst who knows that they want to get their data faster and wants to process it, like that's the goal, right? Sure. And so like, I'd be surprised if that was the primary, I think, persona of like who our primary developers are, right? When talking to customers for what we've seen, like sometimes it's, not even a data team at all, right? We have customers who like the analytics team or like an analyst discovered it and is processing it, and they built everything on their own, right? Without any capabilities from the central data team. We have other customers who like the not central data team built it, and then the central data team kind of took it over, right, for all the different things. And then we have other central data teams too that just kind of build it from the ground up. Like we talk a lot about on the real-time intelligence space around where real-time intelligence really fits into the data mesh type approach, right? So when we think of like data mesh and Fabric and all the different things that are capable of, real-time intelligence really fits very nicely into how you kind of scale those nodes out into all the different things to empower all those business teams. So like, I think it can be built by data engineers. The goal is for it to be the Microsoft Ratatouille effect, right? The Power BI effect of old, right? The anyone can cook kind of approach.
True.
Right? In many ways, we draw a parallel on the CAT team to real-time intelligence and what Power BI was 10 years ago, right? So when Power BI came out 10 years ago, it was a very niche product. There weren't a whole lot of people. I can tell you to this day, I remember my boss at the time calling me and being like, hey, there's this thing, like, you're the analysis services expert. You're the guy who knows SSAS like the back of your hand. It's called Power BI. Like customers are starting to ask about it. You should go pick it up and you should go learn it. And so I focused on Power BI for a long time on all the different pieces. But then we look at kind of where that's going. And so we think RTI really fits and very much in kind of that same niche, right? Of there's so much capability for what you can go do with it. Like it really is a Power BI, like just kind of Power BI next, right? Of all the things you can do. So if only data engineers can use it, then I would say that we need to make some changes because we're not doing something right then.
Next podcast episode will have to be like,
right.
RTI for everyone. Change my mind. I love it. Awesome. Let's kind of do a wrap here, Tom. Any final comments or final thoughts around RTI and kind of our initial discussion here around unpacking what real-time intelligence is looking like?
Honestly, what I'm looking forward to is actually having you on, Chris, and really talking about more than just what is real time, but also, again, how do we actually deal with this with the data modeling for the Power BI Pro? How do I actually migrate over and talking about costs and ultimately adoption?
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like this conversation a lot. I think this is a really good discussion point. I also think there's a really strong story that we need to really convey here, which is we're talking about real-time analytics. A lot of the examples I gave earlier where we're like, money's involved. I got to make decisions quickly. But I think we need to unpack and be very mindful of event-driven data loading. Event-driven architectures is also very important here as well. And that's another really big story to what RTI is doing. And I think that actually speeds up a lot of your data processing and timelining of things. For medium all the way up to very large organizations, there's just a lot of coordination between different teams and different systems, and event-driven based things assists with that. So I want to also very much highlight, I think RTI is for every organization. Everyone should be looking at it in various forms for what they need, either processing data decision quickly or even doing a lot of the event-driven things. Christopher, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining us. I know you could be doing a lot of other things like really helping customers out and being, proactive and making sure everyone's happy on your side. We do appreciate you spending some time with us and enjoying a bit of time with us as we unpack what real-time analytics is looking like inside the podcast. That being said, we thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, thank you so much for being on the podcast and listening today. We know you could spend your time anywhere else. If you want to have these episodes without any advertisements, we do have a membership on the YouTube channel. So please go ahead and join the membership. We'd love for you to join us over there. That helps support what we're doing here, the activities, and helping us pay for the apps and the things that we use to help keep the podcast going. That being said, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast? You
can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. Share with a friend since, we do this for free. Do you have a question, idea, or a topic that you want us to talk about? Maybe more real time. Well, head over to powerbi.tips/podcast. Leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation on all of Power BI Tips social media channels.
Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate your time today, and we'll see you around next time.
Thanks, everyone.